Hello, welcome back. I'm Abhishek De Silva, an undergraduate of the JAM Institute for Advanced Technology.
Welcome back with the project named eShop, and today I'm gonna discuss about the program of the feedback sending process to the purchased products. Here we can see in the purchasing history page our purchased products have listed. If we click on this feedback button, we can see a bootstrap model is displayed, and here it displays the user email, and here we can save a feedback, and we can select the type of the feedback here. If I use a feedback and if I click on this save feedback here, we can see a message is displayed as the feedback saved. So then today we're going to discuss about this program and the program of the feedback process. So then let's move to Visual Studio Code, and here in the purchasing history.php file I have included the connection.php file, and then I have checked whether a session by the name U is set. If so, we have obtained the email that's stored in the session by the name U and store that in a variable called email here. And then we have called the search function with the query as select all from the invoice table, where user email equals to the email or the mail that we have obtained, and then I have stored the relevant results we get back from the database in a variable called invoice results set. And then I have checked the number of rows in it and store that in a variable called invoice num. And after that I have used the PHP script again, and through an if condition I have checked whether the invoice num is equal to 0. If the invoice num is equal to 0, we have displayed the empty view of the purchasing history page, and then if the invoice num is not equal to 0, it comes to the errors, and here we have displayed the view when there are products in the purchase history page. And then here I have used a PHP script, and I have used a for loop here, and I have created a variable as x and assigned a value as 0, and then I have checked whether the value of x is less than the invoice num, and I have used an increment here. And then I have obtained the result that's stored in this invoice results through the fetch assoc and store that in a variable called invoice data. And after that I have echoed the invoice ID that's stored in this invoice data, and then I have again used the PHP script, and I have called the search function with the query as select all from the product table, and I have used an inner join to join the product image table on the product table dot the id equals to product image table dot product id. And then I have again used the inner join to join the user table on product.user email equals to user table dot the email, where id equals to invoice or the product ID that is stored in this invoice data. And I have stored the relevant results we get back from the database in a variable called detailed results, and then I have obtained the result that's stored in this detailed result through the fetch assoc and store that in a variable called product data. And after that, as the source or the src of this image tag, I have echoed the image path that's stored in the product data, and also as the card title, here is the product details viewing part, and as the card title I have echoed the title that's stored in this product data, and then I have echoed the last name and the first name that's stored in this product data as the seller's name, and also as the price I have echoed the price that's stored in the product data. And then after that I have echoed the quantity that's stored in this invoice data, and then I have echoed the total that's stored in this invoice data as the total, and then I have echoed the date that's stored in this invoice data as the purchase date. Here is the button relevant to the feedback process, and in the button relevant to that, on the on click of that relevant button I have called a function as add feedback, and I have sent a parameter through the function as I have echoed the product ID that's stored in this invoice data. So then let's move to JavaScript file to discuss about this add feedback function. Here is the add feedback function. At first I have created a global variable called m here, and then I have obtained the parameter that's sent from the purchasing history page, and I have stored in a variable called id here. And then I have obtained the element with the id feedback model plus the id that we have obtained, and then we have stored it in a variable called feedback model. And if I showed you the element with the id feedback model, it's in the purchasing history.php file. We can see that here's the feedback model id that is responsible for the feedback model that we have discussed in a previous video. I have used the product id that's stored in this invoice data also with the id that we have given to the model. And then I have assigned a new bootstrap model, the feedback model, to the global variable called m, and I have used the m.show function here. And then here in the model that we have created for the positive type, I have given an id as type 1 for the input tag related to the positive, and then for the neutral label and the input tag related to it, I given the id as type 2, and I have given the attribute as checked. And then for the input tag related to the negative, I have given an id as type 3, and then as the user email, I have given the value as the mail that we have stored in this mail variable. I have coded that, and I have disabled this by disabling the user to enter an email. And for the text area, I have given an id as feed here, and then for the save feedback button, I have called an on-click function with the function save feedback, and I have sent a parameter as the product id that's stored in this invoice data. And then let's move to JavaScript part to discuss about the save feedback function. Here's the saved feedback function, and I have obtained the parameter sent from the purchasing history.php file, and then I have created a variable called type here, and I haven't assigned any value to it. And then run if condition, I have checked whether the element with the id type 1 is checked, and if so, I have assigned the value of this type variable as 1, and if not, it comes to the next else if condition where it checks whether the type 2 element or the element with the id type 2 is checked. If so, I have assigned the value of this type variable as 2, and if not, it comes to the next else if condition where it checks whether the element with the id type 3 is checked. If so, we have assigned the value as 3 to this type variable. And then I have obtained the element with the id feed, and then I have stored that in a variable called feedback, and also have created a new form data and stored that in a variable called form here. And after that, I have append the values to this form, or the id. I have appended the id by the name PID to this form, and also the type by the name T to this form, and also the value of this feedback by the name F to this form, as we have to append the values to this form as the name value pairs. And then I have created a new XML HTTP request and store that in a variable called request here. And then I have called an anonymous function on each change in state of this request, and I have checked whether the status of this request is equal to 200, and then the ready state is equal to 4, and if so, we have obtained the response text of this request and store that in a variable called response here. And then when if condition, I have checked whether the response is equal to success. If so, I have added a message as feedback saved, and I have called the hide function, or that I have hidden the model that we have showed or the displayed earlier. And then if it comes to the else of this, that means the response is not equal to success, then we have added the response we get back from the server side. Here I have used the open function, and I have used the post method to send information to the server side, and then I have set the information to the save feedback process.php file, and here I have used true to mention that I'm using the ajax method, and I have for the send function, or I have sent the request with the form that we have created. So then let's move to save feedback process.php file. In the save web process.php file, at first I have used the PHP script, and then I have used the session start here, and then I have included the connection.php file, and I have checked whether a session by the name u is set, and if so, I have obtained the email stored in this session by the name u and stored that in a variable called mail here, and then after that I have obtained the PID sent through the post method and stored that in a variable called PID here, and also the T that sent through the post method and stored that in a variable called type, and also the F and stored that in a variable called feed here. And I have created a new date time, and I have stored that in a variable called D, and I have created a new date time zone as the Asia column zone and store that in a variable called time zone here. And then I have set the time zone to the date that we have created, and I have formatted the date that we have obtained as year, month, date, hours, minutes and seconds. And then I have stored that in a variable called date here, and then I have called the IUD function with the query as insert into the feedback table. I have mentioned the relevant columns as the type column, date, feed, product ID and user email, and I have set the values as the type, date, feed, PID and the mail. And then I have echoed as success. So this is the process of the purchasing history and the feedback saving. So then let's meet in the next video, and bye for now.